Alright, so this video is going to be a little bit about how to automate certain actions that you might do a lot during your overclock testing, benchmarking, stress testing, stuff like that. So I learned this stuff over the years because I noticed, when I'm in the BIOS, I go into the BIOS a lot, then I'll come back into Windows, and I'll basically be doing the same actions over and over again. So I figured out, there's pretty much an easier way to do this. And a lot of common stress testing programs can actually be run from the command line. This is pretty useful if you spend a lot of time running these programs. So a lot of common ones, I'm going to cover a few, but a lot more programs than you think can actually be run from the command line. But I'll cover a few very common ones like Cinebench. So here's a Cinebench command line bat file. A bat file is this'll run this code in a command prompt console. So it's the same as opening up a CMD window and typing this, except you can click it as a shortcut. So this is pretty sweet. So this is, I named it Cinebench r20.bat, and we'll give it a run, and you just open it and boom, it'll just start running the same test as if you opened up the GUI and clicked run. Except the cool thing is with this, if you pause it, you can let this run and it's just going to output the results in this window right here and keep it paused up on the screen for you. So it's pretty sweet. You can add this to your startup folder, or you can do some pretty cool things like I'm going to let this run, but I'll go ahead and edit this. You can use this command prompt command called timeout T, and then you can put in a number like 30, and I'll save that. And this Cinebench just finished running, so boom, there is the damn score. Where is it at? 52, 57. Yeah, it's a shitty score because I'm actually recording OBS. I'm not using the capture card this time around. I'm just encoding on this as I film it. But yeah, it's pretty sweet. So you can do some pretty cool things with this. Actually, you can add a timeout. So right now, this timeout will wait for 30 seconds before executing the script. So it's pretty cool. If you wanted to add this to your startup folder, you could do something like timeout, 180 or whatever. I'm not going to run this, let it run out because it'll take forever. But you can add this to your startup folder. It'll wait for 180 seconds. It'll let all your startup shit flush out before it runs the test for a better score or whatever. And if you just want to skip it, you just press whatever key and it'll go on and do its thing. I'm going to exit out of this real quick. But you can do the same thing with timeout. So let me get rid of that. Let me exit out of that real quick. Then you can time out. Let's say you want to wait for 60 seconds to let your heat sink cool down. Then you can run the same thing again. And then you could even do it one more time. So this script, for example, now if I save that, it'll run Cinebench. It'll record the score in that window. Then it'll wait for 60 seconds. Then it will run it again, wait for 60 seconds, then run it again and wait for 60 seconds. Then you can then it'll pause it at the end and you can kind of scroll through the window and get an average of your scores or whatever. So it's pretty sweet. I use this one a lot. It just makes things way faster. You don't have to open up the window like this. You don't have to click run. It might seem mundane, but honestly, I use this shit all the time. You can add it to your startup folder or whatever. So that's a cool one. Cinebench. Here's one I do 7-zip. So here's a 7-zip.bat. You can run 7-zip from the command line, even if you have the portable version of Cinebench, which is pretty cool. That way you can load up the portable version on your benchmarking OS, and you don't have to bloat up your Windows install it with a full installation or whatever. But the CD command, I'm not the best with command prompt. This shit's not too streamlined. These work, but I don't have it down to a fucking science or anything. But you want to use CD so that it directs your command prompt to the directory that your program's in. I'm not going to go into full in depth. You can get the parameters for these programs pretty much on the internet. Just type in like 7-zip command line options. Now, obviously, 7-zip has tons of command line options if you want to actually use it for its main purpose, which is adding to archives and whatnot, automating it from the command line. But the B command will run the benchmarking tool from 7-zip. 3 is, so I have this set up to run 3 benchmarks. It'll run the benchmark 3 times, and this is your dictionary size. I'm not going to get into all that because I don't want to focus on like one program. This is a very small dictionary size, but I'll run 7-zip and show y'all. Pretty cool. It just does it all by itself. You just open up this and bam, here's it's running. It's almost done with the first iteration. It's going to do a second one and a third one. Now, obviously, for accuracy purposes, you'd want to increase that to something like 10 or 20, or you can even make your own version of a stress test if you make this like 50 or 100 and increase the dictionary size. But yeah, here's your average over 3 benchmarks. There's my compression score, decompression score. Very sweet. Let's move on to what else I got here. Furmark. You can run Furmark from the command line as well. So I have it set to CD, so change directory to the directory that I have Furmark installed in. I'm not going to go into all this, but you can change the resolution of the Furmarking stress test you want to run. This is the same thing as just launching Furmark and then pressing the start button. But the thing is with this is this opens up a lot more options. So you can do something like, obviously you can run that and then run another one. Well, I don't want to run Luxmark right now. Let me get rid of this shit real quick. But you can run, let's say, Furmark and 7-zip. And bam, now you can test. There's probably a more methodical way to do it, but I'm just trying to showcase the options that what you can do now that you know how to do command line stuff. Now here's your score when you're running a GPU test and your benchmark. So you can combine these in all sorts of fucking ways. I use the Furmark one a lot too. Luxmark is another sweet benchmark. I don't know why people don't use this a lot. There are so many tests you can run with Luxmark. Here's the actual GUI interface of Luxmark. I'm using V4. But here are all the different benchmarks you can run. You can run it on your GPU, you can run it on your CPU, and you can run both at the same time. So I'll show y'all OpenCL and native ++ at the same time. So obviously this one's gonna load up your all your cores and your GPU at the same time. So you can get a nice little score. This benchmark takes 2 minutes to run. I'm not going to let this run all the way through, but it'll give you a good combined score or whatnot. But that's not all with Luxmark, because you have so many different options for this benchmark. You can do it here. Now here's a cool bat file for Luxmark. This one, for example, will change the directory to where you have Luxmark installed. By the way, it's a portable program. You don't have to actually install it. You just download it. This command, it's called std out. Don't know what it stands for. Don't care. But it'll output the command line console to this file. So right now I have it, it'll output to this. It's empty because I didn't let it run all the way. But then you can do your mode. So right now I have this to benchmark the CPU, which uses C++. It's it's pretty cool. It's all right. But you can change this to, like, let's say hybrid. This one's actually case sensitive, so you have to do something like that. And you can run this, and bam, it'll run this for a minute or 2 minutes, and then when it's done, it'll output to this file. Now you can also add the pause command, and I think it might show it, but it might not. You have to do this though because it'll close the window so fast that you can't see your score. So you actually have to look at the log file you produced yourself with it. But pretty badass. Very cool when you can combine a GPU. You can do both or just your CPU. I don't want to save that. Here's okay, so here's a wait, I thought I got a stress test in here, but you can actually, that's not going to work because it's actually case sensitive. But you can do stress tests instead of benchmark. So I think it's just stress test, hybrid, or OpenCL, or whatever you end up choosing. This one looks a little bit different because this, if you do start from directory, which is the /D, you can add this parameter, which will launch it in high priority or low priority or whatever the fuck you want. And let's see if that actually works. I'm kind of rusty with this. I haven't really prepared too much, but that's Lux hybrid. Yeah, there we go. So this one won't benchmark. This will just stress test. So this will just last forever until you close it out. Pretty cool if you want to you want to test out your how stable your system is or whatever. You wanted to add another stress testing program. Obviously this isn't enough. If you want full stability, you got to combine all sorts of stress tests, but y'all know that already. The last one I want to show is, okay, Y-Cruncher. So you can run Y-Cruncher stress tests from the command line. This one's kind of complicated. I ended up finding out about this on the internet, and I copied the config file. But once you copy it, it's easy to change. So I have a 16-thread CPU, so I have 0 to 15. Obviously, if you have like a 6-core, 12-thread CPU, you want to do 0 to 11, or whatever corresponds to how many threads your thing has. But this is a nice little mem testing configuration I have for Y-Cruncher. I have it set to stop on error false, so this won't stop when it finds an error. Pretty cool if you are testing like your curve optimizer and you want to know which cores are throwing the error. These are your tests. These are also case sensitive, and these are not all the tests. These are just the ones that are pretty memory intensive. But once you have your config file saved, you want to save that in the directory that you have Y-Cruncher in. You want to save this in your Y-Cruncher folder. Then you want to go to the Y-Cruncher folder and make I got some other shit in there, just ignore it. Then you want to make a bat file for this. So this one, for example, will wait 4 seconds, change the directory to Y-Cruncher, and then it'll start Y-Cruncher. Now these are the parameters you need to use, and once it might look complicated, it's really not. When you break it down, look, it's just going to start Y-Cruncher, and then these are the command line parameters that it's going to run. So I forgot why you need pause 1. I don't really know what that is, but you got to have it. And then for config, you just type config space and then the name of the configuration file you saved. So mine's named memtest. So I'm going to X all that out, and I'm going to run it. It's going to wait for a few seconds. And boom, there we go. It just automatically starts running the configuration file just as you put it. These are the memory intensive ones. It's using right now it's using 12.9 gigabytes of RAM, but obviously you can change that in the config file. I don't know why it's different. This is like, 138. You'd think that was like 13.8 gigabytes. You can increase that to like 141 or 142 or whatever. Increase the memory usage if you want. But it's pretty cool. You can do that with Y-Cruncher. And once you have somewhat of a knowledge of these, you can do some pretty cool things. Like here's one. This I use this every now and then. It's mainly I use this to practice on. So this is a longer test where I combined some of I combined the Cinebench with the 7-zip, except they don't run concurrently. They wait in between. So this is pretty sweet. This will run 7-zip. This will run one thread of 7-zip for 3 times, give you an average. It'll wait 30 seconds. It'll run the 4-thread Cinebench, wait for 30 seconds, run the 6th thread, 8th thread, boom, 12th thread. You can add the 16th thread. And I have it wait 30 seconds to let the heatsink cool down to get a more accurate result and whatnot. And then when that's done, wait 30 seconds, and then it'll run the Cinebench benchmark. Then it'll wait for 60 seconds, it'll run Cinebench again. And at the very end, it'll pause so that you can run this bat file. Oh shit, why that's not working. That one doesn't work for some reason. Why not? Maybe that's fucking it up. I haven't tested this one in a while. I moved these around from OS to OS. There we go. It's working now. The output thing was kind of messing it up a little bit, but I have this to wait for like 180 seconds. I probably had this in my startup folder or whatever, but you can just press a key. Boom, it's going to run the 1 thread for 3 times. And like I said, it's going to pause at the very end, and you can scroll through this window. When it's all done, the window will be real long because it's just ran like 10 stress tests. You can scroll through it and then see all your scores, record them. You can basically just run this and leave, and then come back in like an hour, and all your shit will be done. It's pretty sweet. And the last one that I'll talk about is, this one's a little bit of a tangent, but let's say you got a program like Testmem5. You're trying to tune and stabilize your RAM, and you find yourself your shit's not stable. So then you got to go into the BIOS, change one of your timings, come back. Well, Testmem5 requires admin rights to run, so you can't actually run this from startup. But you can use command prompt, or in this case, I have an auto hotkey script. So this script will wait for 4 seconds and then run TM5. It's the exact same thing as running TM5 by itself. I'll even run it right now. You're not going to see anything for like 4 seconds, but there's the script. It's waiting. Boom, there it goes with the new absolute config. That's probably slowing down my PC while I record because I'm doing it at the same time. Thing is, with the script though, you can now copy this and then run. You can go to your shell startup folder, add this to startup, and now it doesn't matter that it needs admin rights because the script doesn't need admin rights, but the script has the rights to run a program that needs them. So cool little way to bypass programs that need admin rights to run. Pretty sweet. So that pretty much covers it. I don't want this video to be any longer than it needs to be. I might expand on this later, but this was on my mind and I wanted to kind of get something out there. All the documentation for these command line parameters are available all over the internet. So if you're wondering about Luxmark, for example, just go ahead and type in Luxmark CLI or command line interface parameters or documentation, stuff like that, and you can find a whole list for yourself, and you can configure these files just how you want them. Pretty sweet. Hopefully y'all can use that. See you next time.